Okay, and just so everyone knows, this training will be recorded, and it usually takes me about a week to get the recording onto YouTube. So please be patient, and then I will send you the link if you want that recording. We just had a couple more people join. I'm gonna give it another minute. Just so you know, this training is specifically for 5310 subrecipients, especially those with upcoming site visits this year. And if you are brand new to the program and you have not done the post-award training yet, I'm coming from a place of assuming that you understand a lot of this already, and we're not doing like a full post-award training. So if you feel like you're not understanding a lot, just be sure to understand that if you're brand new, you will have the post-award training, and then a lot of this will make sense. This is geared more towards subrecipients who have been in the program and are probably having a site visit this year or next year. So welcome everyone. We're excited to have you here for this training session designed to prepare you for various types of site visits and inspections. Whether you're gearing up for an in-person site visit, a desk review, or a virtual site visit, this training will equip you with the knowledge and skills that you'll need. We will talk about preparing for an in-person site visit and how to have a successful one, what kind of elements and documentation you'll need. And then we'll talk about the difference between an in-person site visit and a desk review, and what's needed for a desk review. We will go over risk assessments, what they are, what they mean, how they've changed from when we started doing them to now. And we will talk briefly about vehicle inspections, but we're not going to go deep dive into vehicles and assets today. That could be another lunch and learn for a different time. But vehicle inspections are usually part of the site visit, so I just wanted to include that. And then we're going to talk about findings and recommendations from a site visit and what a corrective action plan is and why that's a good option for your agency if you have findings or recommendations that you need to address. By the end of this training, I hope that you will have a clear understanding of the preparation that you need to do with an upcoming site visit, how to interpret your risk assessment, and how your risk assessment rating affects your agency and why it's important. Know the key areas of focus during your vehicle inspection and how to resolve findings and how to write a corrective action plan and what that is. Okay, sorry about that. So we're going to go through it kind of by frequently asked questions for each section. So the first question is this an audit? No, this is not the same as an audit. And really quick, this is a funny video I threw in here just to wake everyone up. I know you are either eating lunch or you just had lunch or you're hungry. So I'm going to play this little video. I hope there's sound. Let me know if you can't hear it. It should play the sound.
Can you hear the sound?
There's the sound. Raise your hand if you, or do the little hand raise if you could not hear. I have one person, okay, and no one could hear. How do I do that? Okay, hold on. Capture input term. That might be it. Sorry about this. All right, well, maybe this video won't work. Oh, share sound. There we go. I knew there was something I had to click. Okay, let's start over. Thank you for telling me. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Mason, and I'm conducting the safety audit on.
Oh, maybe.
Should be fun. And how many kids would you say are conducting the safety audit on Hogwarts today? Should be fun. And how many kids would you say have died under your care in the last 10 years?
It sounds quiet.
You've lost count. Is it normal for the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher to end up being evil
Why does it keep doing that?
at the end of every year? It is. Okay. Are you aware that there's a couple of students that just hang out with the groundskeeper every day in his hut? You're not concerned about that at all? You trust him. Okay. It's always the ones you trust. Okay, so you say that you don't put the kids in harm's way. Okay. Well, can you just tell me a little bit about the Tri-Wizard tournament with dragons? Next on the agenda is the Whomping Willow. What's up with that? You happy just having a tree on school grounds that intentionally goes out of its way to try and kill people? Look, I tell you, the only thing that should not be named around here is the fine I'm about to give you guys.
Okay. So this is not an audit. That was an audit. We do not fine you if we find things, okay? It is UTA's role as the pass-through entity to ensure that all subrecipients are compliant with the federal rules and regulations. And a site visit gives us an opportunity to determine what you need assistance with, where we can help, and also if we identify issues or maybe documents and policies that you don't have in place that are required, we can help you be prepared in case your agency is chosen for an audit. And just so you all know, as a reminder, UTA is audited by the FTA. They call it a review too, but it's more like an audit than what we do is. We get audited by them every 3 years, and typically they choose about 2 subrecipients to look at. These are usually agencies that have a large amount of federal funding. At a triennial review, UTA will typically provide the FTA with your documents, but they may come and do a site visit of your agency, or they might request a virtual interview. Subrecipients are also subject to other types of audits by federal agencies like I can't think of the one. There's the general inspector. I think that's what they call it. So if we help you identify these ahead of time, not only does it help you in an audit, but it will also document those findings, and you can show that you've already been aware of them and that you're either working on fixing them or you've worked to fix them, because that makes you look good in an audit. Why are site reviews required? Technically, the FTA doesn't require site reviews, but they strongly recommend site reviews. So we are required to oversee your compliance with the rules and regulations. So how can we do that if we're not doing desk reviews or site visits? So we choose to include on-site reviews as part of our compliance monitoring. We review every 2 years unless your risk rating indicates more or less are required. So if you're a high risk, we typically do a site visit or desk review annually. If your agency is a medium risk, we do it every 2 years. And if you're a low risk or have been a low risk for a long time, we probably will do a site visit and then 2 years later maybe do a desk review and then 2 years later do another site visit. So we kind of separate it out more. What determines if a site visit is needed? Your risk rating, which we just talked about. If you are a new applicant, then you will have a site visit and a risk assessment pretty immediately after you get your first award. And we do keep a schedule that we give to the FTA that shows the next 3 to 5 years who is scheduled to receive a site visit that year. And yeah, we share that with FTA so they are also aware of who we're reviewing every year. How do I prepare for a site visit? we will give you a checklist that has all the documents you're required to prepare for your site visit, very similar to all the documents you're required to upload to your application when you apply. But we tend to go a little deeper during a site visit because we want to check that you're actually following your own policies, not just having them in a folder. So we ask that you collect these documents and organize them how we ask and provide them to us before we come for your in-person review. That gives us more time to review them and prepare our questions so that when we are at your site visit, we're not taking up time just sitting there and looking through all the documents. We used to do that before COVID, and then after COVID happened, we started doing just desk reviews and virtual visits, and we discovered that it was a lot easier and more worth your time if before we come, we get all of those documents virtually or digitally, and we can review them, write down our questions, take notes, and then talk to you about it at the site visit. So we also have this checklist with these naming conventions that helps us organize and helps us get through it faster because it's a lot of documents for us to look through. So please follow the instructions when you're preparing for your site visit, and I'll show you some good and bad examples of that. So on the left-hand side, you'll see, okay, they have a folder for each of the numbers. So if I go back, sorry, really quick, if you look at this list, there's like examples for each topic. So 1_driver training. So they have organized this in their Google Drive. Usually you would put this in a Google Drive. We can create the Google Drive folders for you and share it with you if you want, or if your agency has policies about sharing documents, you can share however you want. However, if you email those documents, they might not get to us. Our firewall tends to block emails that have large attachments that may trigger or look like they are malware or something. So just be aware of that. We prefer Google Drive or some form of document sharing. If you need to put them on a USB and give us that, that's fine also. So they have them organized by the folder, and then you'll see like this example, driver training, they put the page numbers. So if we're looking for a specific policy and you're uploading a whole 300-page handbook, please tell us what page we can find driver training or what page we can find this specific thing that we're looking for. And then if you have multiple documents, you could add a letter or just put them all into a folder so we know they're together. And then on the right hand side, this is a bad example of how to organize them. These are just, they didn't change the name of the files. They just threw the files into a folder and shared it. So that makes a lot of work for the reviewer. So now they have to open every single file and try to figure out what section from the document checklist this file was intended to be connected with, and it's going to take a really long time. So we really appreciate being organized ahead of time, and you can even save all of this so that the next time you have a desk review or a site visit, you already have all of that in a folder and you can go and make sure you don't need to update anything, and then it should be pretty easy. And for your application, it's good to have this. So how do I schedule an on-site review? Typically, you'll receive an email that looks something like this that will tell you that you need to sign up for your site visit. Either a compliance officer or the grant admin will call you to set that up, or we've done sign-up sheets too, where we share a sign-up sheet and you can pick a date and time that works for you and put your name on it. Just work with the reviewer on scheduling a time. Please be aware that if you have a vehicle inspection due, you either need to have the vehicle present at the site visit and not scheduled to go out, or you can schedule your vehicle inspection for a different day if that is what you need to do. Typically, again, we'll provide you with a sign-up sheet, or if we notice you didn't sign up on the sheet, we'll give you a call and try to schedule that with you. What should I expect? You should expect the reviewer to show up on time, and you should also be present to escort them into the building and meet with them. You should have an area where they can sit with you and talk, ask you for documents if they need to see documents, things like that. They will ask you questions and they will take notes. So prepare for their questions. So prepare for the questions by reviewing either your past site visit results beforehand, or if you don't know what the questions are or you don't have a past site visit, let us know. We'd be happy to provide you with that template so you can see what type of questions we're going to ask. We're not trying to, surprise you and catch you in a lie or anything. We want you to be as prepared as possible, and we're happy to give those questions to you ahead of time. You should have documents available on hand that reviewer may request to see if you didn't send them before. Some examples are pre-trip inspection forms. Might want to see where you keep those, accounting logs, like show us your accounting system. Typically, you can send us like screenshots of that stuff ahead of time. But if not, if they're like physical things that we need to see, have those ready at your site visit, or we will tell you, what you sent us wasn't enough. Please have this ready at the site visit so I can review it. You could, the reviewer could ask for private interviews. We haven't done this in the past, but I've had some trainings where other grant managers told me that they pull drivers aside and asked to talk to them. So that is something we could do. Also, a tour. We would love to get a tour of your facility. Um, we would like to learn about your programs. Tell us how the funds have impacted your agency. Tell us about any difficulties that you had. We would love to see where you keep your assets, like your vehicles, and where you keep keys. Show us how people check the keys out and how that works. It's not very often that we get the opportunity to be out in the field and see your facilities and get an up close, in person view of how these funds are impacting our community. So that's really cool for us. Um, so yeah, feel free to give us a tour and tell us about everything that you do. I wanted to share an example that I went on a site visit and they gave me a tour, and I actually got to meet with some clients and talk to them, and it was really nice. And um, yeah, it was just really cool to get out of the office and go see what our clients do. And it's really moving for us. So thank you for doing that. Also, make sure your vehicle is on site and not scheduled to go out that day in case we discover anything urgent that we must keep it from going back into service, like if the lift is broken or something like that. And I'll go more into vehicles coming up. How long does a on-site review take? Preparation it might take you days depending on how organized your files are. It could take you 2 weeks. So, make sure you have that time set aside when you're scheduling your site visit. Understand how much time you might need to prepare. If we get all of your files ahead of time, we prefer a week in advance to the scheduled date. It might only take us 1 to 2 hours for our visit. If you do not give us the files ahead of time, it might take us longer because we'll have to sit down and look through them while we're there. Vehicle inspections can take anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes or longer, depending. And I'll go more into that about what an escalated vehicle inspection is and why that would happen. Who should be present at the site visit? Basically, anyone who touches or is involved with the grant. Your grant manager, and maybe not even present, but who should be involved in getting you the records that you need, because accounting should definitely be involved if you receive operating assistance. You need to show and you need to be able to answer questions about how you keep your grant funds separate from other revenue and how you show time and effort and how often you have audits, that kind of thing. Asset management or fleet management should be either present or part of gathering the documentation or there for a vehicle inspection so they can answer questions. Whoever submits your quarterly reports, civil rights Title VI coordinators, basically anyone who's involved with the grant. Because if we ask you a question, you say, oh, I don't know. I don't know if we have a policy for that. Well, that's probably going to be a finding that we'll have to look further into. So either have those people available or talk to them ahead of time and have them help you with the documents that you need. And then we're going to talk about a desk review. What determines it is needed and how do I prepare? A desk review is similar to a site visit. Typically, it's for low-risk subrecipients. It's like a virtual site visit. We will request the same documentation, and we will likely schedule a short online meeting with you to ask you some questions. A desk review can also be requested for high-risk agencies if it's not possible for the officer to visit in person every year, but they need to be checking in and monitoring that subrecipient more closely as part of like a corrective action plan or an ongoing monitoring plan. How do I prepare for a desk review? The same way as a typical site visit, gather all your documents, provide them to the reviewer, and make sure they're organized and named in a good way. All right, now we're going to talk about risk assessments. Why is it required? How often are they done? What do we look at? And how can I make sure I have a good risk assessment? We started risk assessments a few years back when the FTA started requiring them. They are required. And at first, we did not have them affect your application score because they were new. We were trying to figure out the best way to do them. The federal government didn't give us like a template and say, here, this is how you do a risk assessment. They just said, we require you assess risk. So we wanted time to figure that out. And you've seen that our risk assessment has changed. It started out with like a point system, and we've kind of gotten away from that. And now we just do like a low, medium, or high risk rating. And now this year, we have also started putting them into your application score. So this most recent application cycle, you saw that we were giving a score to your risk rating. So this is the first time that we've actually had it go in because we wanted everyone to get used to it. And we do a risk assessment every year on your agency. How do I read the results? So they will typically look like this. This is like the bottom of your risk assessment showing the areas, and we highlight if a certain area is low, medium, or high risk. And then at the end, we will have your overall risk level. We will also provide you with feedback or suggestions on how to provide or how to improve your risk. And then you'll see in the above sections, we will actually have notes about each little question and each thing that we looked at, and you can read the reviewer's notes to understand why they think that area maybe was a high risk. What topics are reviewed? We look at experience, your experience with federal grants, your experience managing federal assets, your experience writing and maintaining policies that follow federal regulation. We look at legal risk, which could include suspension or debarment from receiving federal funds. It could include investigations from other agencies or maybe state funding sources, lawsuits, issues with board members, anything like that. Even news articles. We put your agency and maybe your board members' names into Google, and we just make sure that nothing's coming up that we might need to address. Communication. This includes responsiveness to our emails and phone calls. If you're attending LCCs, if you're turning in reports on time, if you're communicating issues with us, asking questions, attending trainings. Basically, if you're responsive to whatever the grant manager is trying to do, working with you or trying to get reports from you. tracking. This includes your time and effort that you submit with your operations requests. This includes your data, like your milestones and things that you put in your quarterly report, pre and post trip inspections, your ride pilot reports, and if you have good tracking and accounting policies in place. And then same for oversight is similar, but the questions are a little bit different. We look at payment requests are on time, you have good internal controls set up, you follow your bylaws and your SOPs or your policies, you have good chains of command or policies to oversee spending to help avoid fraud, things like that. Then we look at stability. Stability could be cash flow issues, percentage of federal funding. So if you have more than 10% of your total annual revenue is federal, that could indicate that your agency is a high risk. We look at your diverse funding sources, that you're not just depending on government funding. And we look at turnover. Do you have low or high turnover? Is it hard for us to uh, keep track of who's working at your agency because people are just changing all the time and we don't know who to talk to about missing reports? So that's something we look at. And then last, focus. This means things like you have good goals, your staff is aware of the goals and objectives of this grant program. You're turning in reports on time. Again, uh, staff has maybe some uniform guidance training or some understanding of grant policies and procedures. Um, the quarterly reports have a lot of details and reference the milestones from your application. And maybe you're notifying us of issues with your milestones or interruptions to your project in your quarterly reports. So these are all things that we look at when we're evaluating risk. What do I do if I disagree with the risk rating that I got? Sometimes you might disagree with what the compliance officer wrote on your risk assessment or on your site visit, and you're welcome to address those in your response to the findings letter or schedule a meeting with the officer or the grant administrator to discuss the review. If you think a document at your site visit or your risk assessment was missed or overlooked, or maybe they didn't see that policy correctly, first double check that you sent us the correct document. And maybe if you put the page number, was it easy to find? Was it highlighted? If not, resend it to the officer and explain why you think it was missed or what you think was misinterpreted. And we're more than happy to look at that again or make amendments to our findings. We can totally do that. Another way to address something that you disagree with is in your action plan. And I will get more into a corrective action plan, what it looks like, how to do it. Also asking for recommendations. Hey, my risk rating was really low. I don't totally think that, or really high, sorry. I don't I don't feel like we're that high of a risk. Can you tell me what areas you think I could do to improve my risk for next year? Like, are there any little things that I could do this year, or things I should have in my corrective action plan that I can do to improve my rating for next year? We're happy to help you come up with ways to improve your risk. Sometimes changing one category will not result in the overall risk rating change because it depends on how many areas have been identified as a high risk. So just be aware of that. Um, and please be kind to your reviewer. They're not trying to fine you, right? They're just trying to help you identify areas for improvement or areas that an auditor might find some weaknesses in. So you use this to your advantage. This is like a free internal audit that you're getting to help you improve. How do I get the best results? Be cooperative, send documents on time, answer questions as detailed as possible. How might it affect my federal awards and oversight? If you're high risk, that can lower your application score and it can increase your oversight requirements. So if you want less site visits and less desk reviews, then do really good at your site visit and improve that risk rating, and you won't have people over your shoulder all the time. We don't want that either. It's a lot of work for us. How do I improve my risk? Read the notes from the areas the reviewer identified as issue areas, ask questions about them, and again, make a corrective action plan to make changes over the next year and stick to your goals. Okay, we're going to talk really quickly about vehicle inspection, but I'm not going to get too into it because, again, that might be a separate training where we just focus on assets. So I just wanted to include this because typically we schedule vehicle inspections at the same time as the site visit, so we don't have to come up to your agency multiple times. So we'll talk about that. What determines a vehicle inspection is needed? Again, we have a schedule that we use, and each vehicle needs an inspection about every 2 years. And just so you know, UTA also does a full asset inventory every 3 years where we come out and take a picture of the asset. And just so you guys know, just since I have these, I haven't put these out yet, but I did make some stickers recently that will say that your vehicle is federally funded and that you need to contact us before you dispose. So we're going to start putting those on all of the 5310 funded vehicles so that they're easier to identify and to help you remember which of your vehicles are from the 5310 program. Which vehicles will be inspected? We will notify you which ones need inspection. Again, we have like a 3 to 5 year plan spreadsheet that shows us what year we need to inspect each vehicle, and we'll tell you exactly which vehicles we will be looking at that year. And then to prepare your vehicle for inspection, please clean your vehicle. It should be cleaned regularly anyway, but make it look nice. Check your safety equipment, make sure it's all there. You can check Ride Pilot, make sure you're up to date on all your reporting and there's no flags or alerts on there saying that it's out of compliance. Also check, we do quarterly Ride Pilot reports and we let you know if anything was wrong in that quarterly report. So you could go back and check your quarterly report email and see if the compliance officer identified any issues at that time that you might need to fix before your inspection. And then have your pre and post trip inspection forms available on that specific vehicle because that is something we will also look at. What is looked at during an inspection? This is an example of a very thorough one. I think we have a slimmed down version that's more for our compliance officer to do an inspection. But if the compliance officer finds anything in their inspection, they will escalate it to a mechanic person that we have on staff who will then come inspect the vehicle. So there are a couple different reasons of why a vehicle inspection could be escalated. Escalated means the compliance officer determined the vehicle needs to be inspected by a vehicle expert. And this could be because there's a larger issue identified. Maybe a lift was broken, an engine light was on, the vehicle might be very old, anything like that. Or it could even be because the officer didn't feel familiar or comfortable with the model of vehicle, like if it's a big old cutaway bus and it looks like there's a lot of issues with it. So our mechanic, Robert, who typically it's Robert Rigby, some of you might know him. He will come and do a more thorough inspection, which will include more of these bottom things like he will check the engine and chassis, the suspension, battery, things like that that your reviewer might not know that much about. Okay. So if it is escalated, just know it might be a more thorough vehicle inspection, and then you'll have to work with Robert or whoever that mechanic is to make sure that any of their findings were addressed before the vehicle is put back into service if there were any urgent ones. So on this picture, I have anything in bold. If there's anything like that found, typically the vehicle must be taken out of service and those need to be addressed before the vehicle can go back into service. Okay, but we don't want to talk too much about assets today. So back to site reviews. Let's talk about findings and recommendations on the results of your site review. You will receive a letter that explains any findings, how long you have to respond. Typically, it's 30 days. And then if you cannot address the findings in the 30 days, you must submit a corrective action plan. Please do not make the officer hunt you down and email you every month trying to get you to address your findings. We are busy and it makes our jobs very difficult when we have 30 agencies that we're having to email every month. Hey, where's that document? Where's that document we asked for? You know, so please, when you do a corrective action plan, follow what you put in there. The reviewer will tell you how long you have to respond, and I'll show you some examples of that. Be sure to respond in writing and address each action item that they found, or submit a corrective action plan that addresses each action item or finding. So here is an example of a follow-up letter. So it says, thank you for cooperating in your site visit. Attached are the following documents. So you'll have this letter, and then you'll have your site visit notes and your risk assessment and any vehicle inspections that were done, all attached in one packet. And then here you'll see this agency had a few action items that they need to address. And then under there, it says the improvement suggestions. So improvement suggestions are just, hey, we noticed that you were a little bit weak in this area, or you were good in this area, keep doing that. And this is what we recommend that you do to improve that area. That is not an action item or finding that you need to address to us. This is just our area where we're giving you a little bit more feedback and maybe some recommendations to either improve your risk rating or just your overall program. And then down below, we'll have our conclusions. Our conclusions are our recommendations, what you need to do next. You're usually given 30 days to respond to each of these action items up above, or you can respond with a corrective action plan, which I will show you more about. And then we'll also usually say our recommendation for your next site visit. So here you'll see this agency remained low risk. We recommend another site visit in 2 years. And then, yeah, so that gives you an idea of what we're looking at and what our recommendations will be in the future. And then we'll also have attached, everything that we looked at, all of our notes, so that you can see exactly what the reviewer looked at. So we're very transparent about everything. Okay. This is, oh, sorry. Okay. This is a follow-up letter example. So this is what we send you after 30 days if we didn't receive all of your action items or we didn't receive a corrective action plan. So we'll list all the items we received and reviewed and approved, and then we'll tell you what you're still missing or what we didn't approve, and then any follow-up recommendations. So again, it takes our officer time and effort to write these follow-up letters. So if we're sending 5 follow-up letters to your agency, that doesn't look good and it can affect your risk rating in the future. So just make sure you're communicating, you're putting in writing, you're organized with these responses, and you're helping our officer check these items off their list so they don't have to keep following up with you to get you to send these items. Finally, once you've turned everything in, you'll receive a conclusion letter. Please save all our letters along with your documents to make your next site visit easier. Because if you have it all in a folder and then your next site visit, you can look at all that. You can see, hey, what did we not do good last time? Or what were we missing? Let's make sure we get those newer documents or things that we changed into our compliance officer this year so that we don't have any findings on these same things. Because we will notice if it's a repeat finding and we will put that on our letter because we look at your letter from the year before when we're doing our letter and we'll say, oh, this is a repeat finding, and we will put that on there. So it's good to be organized and save all of this stuff so that you can address it better the next year. And yes, you'll get one of these final letters that concludes it, and then you're done until your next site visit. So let's talk about corrective action plans. I think corrective action plans are great, and I'm going to tell you why. A corrective action plan is a step-by-step document that outlines how to fix a problem or prevent it from happening again. It can be used in business operations to address negative actions, ensure compliance with safety standards, or improve processes. And then this is another definition that I found in the uniform guidance, which the federal government uses to guide all compliance. The action the facility or agency will take within a specific time frame to address the finding or noncompliance and to prevent it from recurring. So, how do we do this? First, we're going to identify the problems. We're going to try to improve our processes or improve our documents, and then implement them. So, why would I write a corrective action plan? You would want to write one if you cannot address all the action items that were listed on your site visit findings within the 30 days given. If you had one action item, hey, I can address that in 30 days, no problem. Here you go. It's resolved. It's done. If you have a list of like 10 things and some of them are policies that you don't have in place, you might need more time. So writing a corrective action plan is going to give you the time that you need. So be realistic about the timetable that you're setting for yourself in your corrective action plan. Make sure that you give yourself time to investigate an issue deeply or write a policy or get it approved. And this is just a little visual. You got to identify the root cause. Then you'll have the corrective action that you take, and then a preventive action. So you want to address all three of those things in your corrective action plan, not just say, well, this is the problem and we fixed it. But how do I know that next year you're not going to have that same problem? So that's something you should think about when you're writing your corrective action plan. How can I help my agency? If you have a similar finding in an audit, you can show your auditor that you already have a corrective action plan that you're working on or that you completed to get ahead of the issue. It looks really good to auditors if you've already identified the issues in your agency and you can show them that. It also gives you more control over the time to address the issue so that the compliance officer isn't emailing you every 30 days. Hey, where's these documents? Hey, where are these documents? You're saying, I need 90 days to get this document done, and this is what I'm going to do. So it gives you the control over setting out that plan to address the issues. You can have it well documented to ensure implementation and prevention throughout your agency. Also, that's another good reason to have a CAP plan because you could send it out to everyone and say, hey, this is our corrective action plan, everyone. We're following this. So everyone's aware in your agency of what you're doing. Why doesn't UT just write one for me? I've actually been asked that. Because it puts the issue into your hands, right? It's not our place to tell you how to fix an issue. It's only our place to help you identify what the gaps or issues or policies that you don't have yet are. We want you to set your own goals and we will hold you to them. So a CAP plan is a way for you to say, these are my goals. This is when I'm going to have them done. This is what I'm going to do. Will you please follow up with me on this date and make sure I've done everything that I've said I'm going to do? Sure, we will do that. So it puts it in your hands, lets you do it. It's not really our place to do that for you. And then what does a CAP look like? I have templates that I can give you. I also have a website, which I'll show you that has good options on it. So this is an example of a template that I have. Also, some places I've seen use CAPA instead of CAP. I don't really know what the other A stands for, but just so you know, there's different acronyms for it. But this is what it will look like. You identify your issue. What is the root cause of the issue? What is your corrective action? how are you going to implement your new procedures or your corrective action? What is the date you will have this resolved by? And how are you going to prevent it from happening again? And then an evaluation and follow up, because to make sure that it was actually implemented, we want to know that down the road you're going to follow up or see how it's working. So, like, if I didn't have a policy for checking my fire extinguishers in my buses. And so we had multiple findings that all of our fire extinguishers were expired because we didn't have a policy to check that. Well, I'm going to put in my CAP plan that one of our preventive actions is that every quarter, our fleet manager is going to go read the dates on the fire extinguishers, and we put that into our quarterly checklist for vehicle inspections. And then a year from now, we're going to do an evaluation to follow up and check that those have actually been done. And if it's working, if it's helping, if we caught any and replaced any, and if it's working for us. So that's an example of how you would put that into place. And then remember to have your goals in your corrective action plan be specific, measurable, which means you can measure if it's working or not, achievable, relevant, and time based, which is the effective date of your resolution, right? When are you going to have this done by? Because UTA is going to hold you to that date and follow up with you and make sure that you met your goals and that you did that. And then I took this quote from my Fed trainer. I also put this website down here because they have a full guide on how to write a corrective action plan. And Rachel Werner said, in times of stress, limited resources, new untrained employees, it's easy for things to slip back into unhealthy patterns of the past. And that is why the evaluation and follow-up portion is very important. And I think it's also important to document past findings so that when you have a new grant manager, they can go in and look and see what the problems used to be and pick up from there. Okay, so this is what we've learned today. We learned how to prepare for an in-person site visit, how to prepare for a desk review or a virtual site visit. We talked about how to understand a risk assessment, what to expect from vehicle inspections, how to read findings and what documentation will come, and how to write a corrective action plan. All right. I see some hands up. Is that from when we couldn't hear, or do people have questions?
It's when we.
I see a question. Jessica Tanner asks, if we had a site visit last year, would we expect a desk audit this year or nothing this year? So one way you can check is by going to your site visit from last year and reading what the officer recommended. Also, you can just ask us and we can look at our schedule. So we have like a 3-year plan of who is getting one every year. So we can share that with you and tell you when to expect it. But then remember, if your risk changes, we might change that schedule. So if you went from a medium risk to a low risk, that would probably change your schedule and reduce it. So it just depends. Oh yeah, and then Christy pointed out Turn was the subrecipient that was audited by FTA in our last triennial, and they did a great job and we had no findings. Yay. Are there any other questions that I can answer? No.
It's pretty clear.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I hope this was helpful so that you're not surprised when site visit time comes. We just hired a new compliance officer, and I think she's on here, Glenda. And so when she starts, I will be working with her to start scheduling site visits for this year. And so you will hear from us probably in the next few months. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Alika, I think John has a question.
Okay. Do you have requirements for what must be included in the pre and post inspection form? Yes, we do, and we have forms. They are on the website, but I can also provide them to you if you send me an email. Um, People do tend to change them sometimes, but I can tell you what the basic requirements are. Just do a walk around and check things. It just depends. Like some people would rather do a monthly or a quarterly inspection where they get more thorough, where they lift the hood and they check all the liquids. No, no, you can have the post and pre on one form. That's how we do it. So we do the pre and post on one form. We have it on a clipboard in the car, right? You get in the car, you do a walk around, you check things off, you put your starting mileage and all that, and then at the end of your shift or your day, you put your end mileage and all of that, and that's your post inspection. Or do a walk around. Did I hit anything? Make any did anything happen during the day while I was driving that I need to put on my form? And that can be one form. The pre and post trip inspection could be one form, but it gets more complicated when you have agencies where drivers are changing in and out of the vehicle often. Then they each need to probably do their own pre and post trip inspection form because it's going to get really confusing. Um, so it kind of just depends. I've also seen agencies who prefer to have a more simple pre and post inspection sheet, but then monthly their fleet manager will go do a more thorough inspection. And other people would rather have their drivers check every time, check the wiper blades, check the fluids, check the tires, and all of that. Um, so it kind of just depends on what you want. As long as these things are being checked, and as long as you have policies in place and you're following your policies, that's really what we care about. So, but I can give you examples. Um, are there any other questions?
Testing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my mic was having issues. Let me elaborate a little bit more. So just with those pre and post inspection forms, we're doing a really thorough pre-trip inspection. And right now we're doing a really thorough post-trip inspection. But I guess that's
Okay.
my question. Some of the things on the post-trip inspection we're doing on our next pre-trip the next morning. And so it seems
Right.
kind of duplicative, like running the lift cycle or doing the in-depth inspection on all of the like checking the oil and doing all of that. So that's kind of
Right.
where my question was coming from, is like how detailed does that post trip inspection form have to be?
From what you're saying, it sounds like those are more important things for the pre-trip, right? So when it's the morning and I'm getting to my vehicle, I probably want to check those things before I leave the garage. So I would say those sound more important for your pre-trip. And then your post-trip, that's more of an opportunity for the driver to say if anything happened while they were driving. Did anything break? Did anything get dented? Was there any scratches? Did a light come on, like an engine light? Or did you get a tire low symbol? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that is more important for post trip. So if you feel like you want to change your policies or your post trip inspection forms to be better for the driver, that's totally fine. And you can just tell us like, hey, we want to do this, and then show it to us and we can tell you if that looks good, if we approve that. Because I agree, I don't think it's necessary to like check the oil every single time you get in and out of the car, you know? So,
Yep.
um, yeah, AC isn't working. I hit an overhang. Yeah, those are all things you would want to put on your post inspection. So, um, the forms that we have in our like staff vehicles, we just have the pre and post on one sheet, and then it's so that they can enter, like, write down their odometer readings, the lift cycle readings if it has a lift cycle reading, um, and then how long the trip was, and then if any issues arose throughout the trip, they would put that on there. So
Okay.
it
Thank you
just
for
depends on how
clarification.
you want to do it and what your policies are. Yeah. Okay. So we'll be happy to review policies and make sure that they meet, the standards that we follow. All right, thanks, guys. I hope that this was a good, helpful lunch and learn. I'm not sure if I've scheduled our next one yet because it's going to be busy time for the next month, but I will have Trista send out an LCC alert again when I schedule one. All right. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.